All right, today we're diving into an idea called latitudinal advantage, basically the geography of human effort. And trust me, this is one of those ideas that might just completely flip how you look at a world map.
So let me just throw this out there. What if the shape of your continent literally determined your destiny? I know, it sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, right? But what if I told you it might be one of the single biggest, most overlooked factors in all of human history? You know, this whole idea was famously explored by the anthropologist Jared Diamond, and he starts with something that sounds, well, almost ridiculously simple. He just says different continents have different shapes. I mean, duh, right? But that's the genius of it, because as he points out, that seemingly boring little fact, it has an absolutely profound impact on, well, everything. Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this, we've got to do exactly what he did. Let's just take a fresh look at a world map. And I mean really look. Forget the countries, forget the borders, forget all those lines we've drawn on it. We're going back to basics, just the pure fundamental shape of the land.
And when you stare at that map for a while, something starts to jump out at you. A hidden pattern. It's not about how big the continents are, it's about how they're oriented. We're talking about the main axis of each landmass, their direction. And this is where you see it. The Americas and Africa, they're basically tall and thin. They run north-south. But then you look at Eurasia, that massive chunk of land, it's the total opposite. It's wide and fat, stretching for thousands and thousands of miles east to west. And this one single difference, believe it or not, it's the key to the entire story.
So you're probably thinking, okay, tall and thin, wide and fat, who cares? Why on earth does this matter? Well, the answer comes down to the single biggest game changer in human history, farming. The invention and spread of agriculture. It was the engine that powered literally everything that came after.
But here's the kicker. That agricultural revolution, it didn't roll out evenly across the globe, not even close. Some groups of farmers had a way easier time expanding than others. And this created a massive inequality, a huge head start, right from the very beginning.
So how do we connect the dots? How does the shape of a continent affect how fast farming spreads? It all comes down to one simple but incredibly powerful force: latitude. This is the why. This is the secret ingredient behind the whole pattern. Okay, so the core principle is this. Places on the same line of latitude basically share the same kind of life. Think about it for a second. If you travel directly east or directly west, you're staying at pretty much the same distance from the equator, right? Now, if you're an early farmer, this is an absolute paradise. Why? Because if you move east or west, you're going to find a really similar climate. You'll get the same length of day, about the same amount of sunlight and rain. The seasons will change in the same way. So a crop like wheat that grows great in your village, chances are it's going to grow great 1,000 miles to the east or 1,000 miles to the west. And this is the big reveal. This is where it all clicks into place. Eurasia's wide east-west shape. It was like a superhighway for agriculture. That whole package of farming from the Fertile Crescent, we're talking wheat, barley, sheep, goats, it could just spread with incredible ease, all the way from France to China. But what about the Americas and Africa? That north-south axis created one roadblock after another. Think about trying to move maize from Mexico. Go just a few hundred miles north or south, and boom, you hit a totally different climate. Different day lengths, different seasons. The crops just stopped. The whole farming system couldn't spread nearly as fast. So, what does this all mean? The implications are just massive. It really forces you to ask a pretty tough, maybe even uncomfortable question. Just how much of our story is written by the land itself? Is geography destiny? Now, the absolutely critical point here is that this had nothing to do with the people themselves. It's not that some farmers were smarter or worked harder than others. Not at all. It was pure geographic luck. Eurasia's shape gave its people a massive head start. And that head start in farming created a snowball effect. It led to bigger populations, which led to cities, writing, new technologies, and complex governments, all happening much earlier. And really, that's the big idea I want to leave you with. If something as simple as which way a continent is pointing could have such a gigantic impact on human history, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What else is out there? How else has geography been silently shaping our world this whole time? What other invisible lines on the map are still steering our lives today?